Okay, we're back with Bridging the Gap here, and we're with Thomas Luffman, also known as the Director of Administration for Wycomico County. Bunky,
Yeah.
thank you again for our second interview.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, so what's been going on?
Oh, well, we always stay busy in the county. There's always something we're working on. So, there's sort of it's not every day something new pops up, but we have long-term projects on, at the landfill and at the Civic Center. We're doing that great upgrade up there. The airport.
It looks good. Looks good.
Yeah, our river, so there's always long-term stuff, and then things pop up too. So we're always worked it. We always have to do short, medium, and long-term things all at once. So
True, and then the unique thing about you is the fact of you're doing all this stuff, and not a lot of people hear you say anything about it.
that's true. Yeah.
That's unique. I was actually we did the executive decision a couple weeks ago, and Julie was letting us know that you did lunch a couple of days before with the president of the council.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that a lot?
Yeah, so we've started. I had done it a couple years ago, and then when we brought in Steve Lake, our new assistant director of administration, to his credit, he was like, "Hey, I think we should start that up again." And to the council president's credit, he said, "Yeah, I'll meet you guys for lunch." So we've had a couple lunches and plan to continue. I think it's a really good way to have good direct dialogue. And honestly, I know that multiple members, when we first brought Steve on after he was confirmed, met with him, had lunch with him, and I'm open to meeting with any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I just told one of our new employees recently, one of the most enjoyable things I've done since I was a director of administration a couple years ago was actually do a tour of District 1 with Councilwoman Cheney Shields.
Okay.
Because, I grew up in Delmar. My family's been here for hundreds of years, that kind of thing. So a lot of family all around. But, she showed me a part of Salisbury and the area's history that, frankly, I didn't know about. And it was great. It was great to hear about Uptown, which, of course, when I was growing up in the 70s, I think Uptown was probably still around, but I didn't know about it. And different businesses that had been sort of down there by where Brew River was or where it is now. And she took us around and it was a really great tour. I'm glad she gave it to us.
Actually, you mentioned in Cheney, right? You're talking about that she took on the tour. Yeah, she'd actually told my wife and I about how, like, near Brew River used to be a whole new different, area. It was actually, it was like the business area for the black community.
Yes.
And that's unique and I thank you for actually touring that with her and doing lunch with President Cannon. So are you like making your way through everybody at the council, trying to get in, kind of not like mingle, but see where their heads is? Is that the goal is?
Well, I'd be open to it, but really we were just going to meet with the council president. Now that you mentioned, I think that's a good idea too. I mean, I do talk to several, different members of the county council, out in the public. We see each other at events and stuff like that. And here's to their credit. Even if there's something in front of them, because council meetings can get a little tense sometimes.
You think?
So even if there's something in front of them that we want to do and they vote it down, I could see them the very next day at, say, a chamber ribbon cutting or something like that, and they're cordial, socially. It's not. I think sometimes because of people watching, the video, or seeing, differences like there seems to be more news coverage, and this isn't, I'm not blaming our local news, this is just general blanket statement. There seems to be more news coverage no matter where you go when there's sort of a disagreement.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
So unfortunately that sort of makes it look like there's always disagreements, and we agree on a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes in front of the council that they agree on, and it goes right through. Sometimes with very little, interaction. Sometimes with a lot. It just depends on the issue, and that doesn't seem to make it, to
the top as much people see it.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not like we don't send press releases out on everything we agree with either. So, I mean, I'll take some responsibility on that, but. There is really a lot of work that gets done, even in times where there's some tension. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've actually noticed that even when they were doing the protest that happened out front there, it seemed like Baltimore, their news seemed to pick up the negative of what's happening in Wycomico. And I mean, no disrespect to Baltimore. I mean, they got their own situation they could handle. And I remember when we spoke to the executive, which you were not here for that interview, she even said that also. There's so much that they actually agree on because of the fact you sit down and have these conversations, but that never gets any television news time. So you are planning to go around and maybe think about, okay. I think that may actually help with communication, you know.
Absolutely.
Now, as the director of administration, you are in my opinion, please stop me, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the highest non-elected official for the county.
Yeah. So all the department heads report to me, and then I, report to the county executive, and ultimately I report, to the taxpayers of Wycomico County.
Sure. So you're the one that didn't get voted in, but you're doing work.
Yeah.
You're doing the work.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, here's what you have to keep in mind. So some people at sort of my position, which is sort of a hybrid, like if you're in the private sector, like a chief of staff and an administrative officer, it's a little and executive officer. It's sort of, you're doing a lot of things in this position. But the only way that this position works is if you have good department heads that you can work with and that are experts in their field. There's a gentleman, and this isn't a department head, there are multiple people over at the landfill that have literally been with our county for 50 years.
Yeah.
Those people have forgotten more about the landfill than I will ever know. And even though on the chart it shows that, I'm higher up on the chart, they're absolutely experts in their field, and I would be a fool to go over there and try to tell them how to work on the landfill. And so in my position, you really have to know what your strengths are and what your limitations are. And when you don't have sort of the education or the experience of a department head or of an employee, at some level, it's wise to defer to them on some things, So that's, I think that's what makes it successful. I don't think the top-down approach where, and this happens sometimes in private and public sector, where someone will come in and try to sort of run everything, in a way that without listening to feedback and that kind of thing, and that just that wouldn't work, So, and I recognize that, and I recognize, the strength of our employees, so.
Impressive. Now, how long have you been doing things such as with government, not just with the county? How many years would you say?
Well, so it starts back probably in 2006, March 2006. I took a job with the city of Salisbury as a wastewater operator.
Okay.
If I remember right, I was making about $29,000 a year, entry-level position at the wastewater plant. And I did that for about 18 months. And I had started dating a lady that worked at the wastewater plant.
That'll change everything.
And about, and somewhere before the 18 months, I was like, you know what, I think I may want to marry this lady sometime. So, it's probably because she was in leadership of the wastewater plant at the time. And I was like, so we don't ever come to a position where, like, she's my boss or that kind of thing. And she wasn't at the time. I'm going to see
until
if
she got married.
Yeah, well, I'm going to see if I can transfer. Yeah, until we got married, right. So I'm going to see if I can find a transfer. So I transferred from the water plant. I transferred to the water plant when they had a vacancy open. And then, asked her to marry me, and thankfully she said yes. So that, what was great about this, I got wastewater and water experience, and I did that for 9 years. My boss at the water plant was Corey Cameron, who's currently the head of waterworks at the city of Salisbury, and she's great. Her boss at the time was Amanda Pollock, who was their public works director. Now Amanda works for a nonprofit, and someone that we as a county contract with, who's really quarterbacking our water and wastewater effort. And I really look up to Amanda. I would say she's probably significantly younger than I am, but I really look up to her, because she's brilliant and she's kind, and she has a way of expressing herself that is really professional, and I learn a lot from her still, this many years later. So that was really key, and without me knowing it, all these years later, that those experiences in the city would really be key to me being able to do this. Because remember, when the county executive got elected, our county had not moved into doing any wastewater water. We sort of had a plan, and maybe we'd do it, but now, a few years down the road, we're not far from laying pipes in the ground.
Wow.
So, so that was one of my strengths, is the background in wastewater, but I only know so much. So we bring in Amanda because she's more of an expert, and then we also hire Adam Corey, who did
who's excellent at everything he does.
Yeah, absolutely. But he also is an expert on the septic side, and so my part in wastewater is sort of pipes that a city does, a municipal sewer plant. His is you're way out there on a farm, and the septic is what you have, and I know very little about that in comparison. So it was some stars aligned really with that. But what happened is, Delegate Anderton gets elected. I was on town council in Delmar.
Okay.
While I was at the water plant, I got so I'm on town council. Then I become deputy mayor. Our mayor, Carl Anderton, gets elected to
good old Carl.
Yeah, he gets elected to the House of Delegates. I then become his legislative aide, and I did that for a couple sessions. I did it for a couple years, and then I was asked to become, by Governor Hogan, to become the Intergovernmental Affairs Eastern Shore Representative.
Wow.
Which was a really fancy title and they gave me Hartford. So I had 10 counties. I had Hartford and Cecil and south to Somerset, and about 60 municipalities. And the thing about local government you have to know is the elected officials generally on the shore have jobs during the day, and they go to council meeting at night. So if you are looking for the mayor of, I'll say Delmar, because Mayor Ben, right?
Yeah, I was just with Mayor Ben earlier today.
If you are of the mindset like you can go to the mayor's office and meet with the mayor, I'm sure Ben would accommodate that.
Sure, but he also works.
But if you show up on a random Tuesday at 10 a.m., he's probably not going to be there, because we have working elected officials on the shore. So what that made a big challenge for me as an intergovernmental affairs person, because I needed to talk to all these folks and say, hey, what are your problems? How can we help you? Or is there a state agency that's giving you some problems? Maybe I can help work it out through the governor.
Okay.
Right. So I've been to county council meetings for all 10 counties multiple times.
Wow.
Where I would go and hand out my card. Sometimes they'd put me on the agenda, and I would give a short speech. Sometimes not, and I'd meet them before or after. And then I also went to almost all 60 of the municipalities. I think it was 57 I got to, where again I would just give them my card, anything I can do to help. And that was really great, because one of the things Delegate Anderton did, and that I really liked, was constituent services. So when you think of delegates and members of the General Assembly, you think of the bills, how they vote, how they do this. Same with members of Congress. But honestly, a lot of the work is issue-based. So for a member of Congress, maybe you're having trouble getting your passport, and so you can call Congressman Andy Harris's office and say, hey, I expedited my passport. It's supposed to be here in this many weeks. My trip's coming up. They still haven't gotten it. I should have had it 3 weeks ago. I still haven't gotten it. And they can look into that for you.
Right.
Oh, and one of the rewarding ones when I worked for the congressman was sometimes something will happen with a veteran. Maybe they have a house fire or something happens with their medals. You can literally go through, and maybe you could do this through the military itself, I don't know, but you can literally go through Congressman Harris's office and say, hey, I'm a veteran. This happened. All my medals are gone. They actually will they will give you.
Well, that's awesome.
They will reissue the medals, which I thought was really great.
Yeah.
Wow. But anyway, so we emphasized in Delegate Anderton's office constituent services, and then emphasized that at the governor's office, and then then after that, I worked for. I left the governor, working for the governor's office, and I went on to the campaign side, and I was his regional field organizer, which I had 9
for
counties.
Governor Hogan.
Yes,
he really liked you.
Yes, so for his re-election campaign, I had 3 employees on the shore, and we did everything you can think, making phone calls, knocking on doors, all the boots on the ground stuff. I was in charge of all that, and then he gets reelected, and the state. Had filled my position. I knew they would, and I told them, you shouldn't leave. This is a vital position. Don't leave it vacant. And so then they said, hey, we're gonna look through and see what we can appoint you to, but it's gonna take a few months. So Congressman Harris said, hey, Bunky, what are you doing? I was like, I'm gonna go back to the state. He goes, well, would you like to do constituent services for me? And I said, Congressman, I could be here a month or 6 months. And he was like, it doesn't matter to me. If you have to leave in a month, I understand. If you have to leave with no notice, I understand. I'd like you to do constituent services. So I worked for Congressman Harris for 6 months, and look, I can tell you this, and I know it goes against some narrative for some people. Congressman Harris has been nothing but nice. He was warm, you know, to me, to my family. You know, I started that job in you know, January, right after Christmas, and which was vitally important because, you know, I had finished up the campaign obviously in November.
Sure.
So it was really important I got a job, and so he was there. He sort of bridged a gap for me. And he has been great, you know, and I've worked with him, and I still love working with his staff on several different issues. And so that was important because it was another constituent service thing, and I got to see constituent services from the federal government. And then I went to DNR. So Jeannie Hadaway-Riccio, who had been a delegate for our area, becomes secretary of DNR. And she asked me if I would come as a advisor. So I was advisor and a senior advisor. Then we had our legislative director left DNR, and I become the legislative director of DNR.
Somebody asked you to do that.
Yeah. And it had to go through, you know, the governor's office, and they were okay with me working on bills for Department of Natural Resources. You know, trying to get Sunday hunting, which is still a pesky thing. We're still trying to get more Sunday hunting.
You hear that, hunters?
Yeah, it's working on stuff like that. Oysters, you know, crabs. I mean, you know, menhaden, which is a really controversial issue. You know, trying to work on that. You know, just anything you can think. DNR touches. When I went to DNR, I knew it did hunting, I knew it did fishing, I knew it did state parks, but they literally have nuclear scientists there that sort of help regulate the nuclear power plant in Southern Maryland. I mean, there's so much to DNR to unpack. You know, they also have a real estate team, actually, land acquisition planning, where they look and they sort of monitor parcels that are for sale, usually around adjacent state parks. So like if there's a state park, let's
Such
say
as the one they're trying to get in Weetipwin.
Yeah. Well, that went through land acquisition planning, I'm sure. But if there's, say, Sandy Point up near Annapolis, if someone were to sell a parcel that's 10 acres or 100 acres that butts up to that, the state might be interested in buying it. That's what the state seems to do that. But then there's also times where if a county doesn't have a state park, they'll look. Or if there is sort of a wetland or something that has a rare species or something like that, they'll look at buying that too. So and maybe they don't even make that a state park. They have different designations. They have wildlands designation, a wildlife management area. We have a demonstration forest DNR owns off 60-foot road, and they have a walking paths. So I walked through there during the pandemic. That was still open. So me and the boys would take walks through the demonstration forest there, and it's very little known. So, but it's really pretty. If you go there before the first frost, you probably should spray something so you don't get any ticks. I will say that.
Duly noted.
Yeah.
Duly noted.
But other than that, it's really beautiful over there.
So I'm hearing this, and I kind of chuckled a while ago. I kept hearing a word come up. I was asked.
Yeah.
So you've been at me now. How many of these different positions you actually apply for versus them saying, "Hey, can you?"
I really, and it started all, and this is why, this is why I'm really thankful to Carl. Is I asked to be his campaign manager.
Okay, there you go. You asked for something
when he ran for delegate, and so he really brought me in, and I was able to really help with that. But yeah, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but
it's impressive. Yeah. That shows a lot about your job performance, and I must commend the executive for picking you. I was watching some old Greg Bassett interviews. I mean, it's always good to at least look at the blueprint, and he's done a lot of great interviews. And one of the interviews he did was with then candidate Julie Giordano, and she was talking about this person that she has for director of administration. And God rest his soul, he kept wanting to know who it was. She said, "I can't tell you who it is now, but I'm telling you he's going to be good." And, he asked her the question, does the executive drive the bus or hold the map? And she made the comment then, and I'm not gonna say I tried to see if she was gonna say the same thing, but I guess I did. And she did say, she said, look, there's a lot of time that it's Bunky that's doing it. She's like, I don't even know half the things that he knows, or half the some of what my department knows. So for you to be asked to do these different things, people see your good work. I think that's very impressive. I always like to say that you seem to always be in the cut, never the person out front. We were at the, it was the thing that we had with Governor Bob, Governor Early. And I've seen all the people going up there and speaking, the mayor, you had, you know, your Governor Bob, you had all these people talking. There you were off to the cut, just there, needed to be, just because you support the executive's office, which you were part of. And I just think that's impressive. It's impressive. And on top of all this, you're an award-winning dad.
Huh. Well, here's the thing. I think, and I don't think I'm breaking news with this, but you know, going into the last executive race, I really thought Carl was going to run for executive, as most of us did, because he had applied after, you know, Bob Carver passed away, God rest his soul. But then he decided not to. So, but going into that election, I thought, you know, I'm going to support Carl, obviously, that kind of thing. And then when he decided not to, I had different people call and say, you should put your name in it. And I took, I don't know, a week, 10 days, and I really thought about it. I prayed about it. And and what it really come down to is I didn't feel like it was the right move, but I think over the years since, you know, being on town council, which I really loved my time on town council, being deputy mayor of Delmar, but I really feel like I found more of a home being on staff. And if you're staff of an elected official, you have to always remember the people put in office was your boss, not you. Now, to her credit, you know, the county executive, you know, on any of a number of topics, she'll ask for my advice, or frankly, because, you know, I'm a motor mouth, I'll just give it, you know. And look, you know, we agree on a lot of things. Sometimes we don't. But you have to respect it. And the fact that in my role that you have that sort of you know, boss you know, employee relationship where they trust you enough. You have, and then when they don't do it, you know, something you really want them to, you have to respect the person enough. And honestly, I'm really thankful for the friendship I have with her, because I think it allows us to work really well. And I think that sometimes when an issue comes up, or often when an issue comes up, I sort of know how, I know this is how she's probably going to end up, and I'm right a wide majority of the time. But it's vitally important that you have it. She is my boss, clearly, and you have to always remember that, and always remember she was put in by the taxpayers, Wycomico. But also, it is really nice to have that that boss-employee relationship where she respects you enough to solicit your opinion, or let you give it, you know, whether she asks for it or not. Right. So.
Well, and I do see that with the two of you. I've actually. Being around y'all, you know, in settings that don't have a camera in front of us, I've seen times where it's nothing major, but she'll say something, you'll be like, you don't agree with it, you'll voice it, and then she'll be like, yeah, I hear you, and then it's like, well, I put it out there. It's like what you just did there. Well, it's out there, and I think that's very impressive, because a lot of people, they see people as their boss, and they may see things that they don't agree with, but they just won't say anything.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's really, really good. And again, I know in our last interview we made the comment that you've been along with her since I think she got out of the primary going into the general election.
Yeah, so just before the primary is when she sort of announced publicly that if she was elected, she was going to pick me. That might have been like a week or two before early voting started, I think, in the primary.
And unlike a lot of people who are waiting to be the department head or the director of a lot, you didn't just wait till she get elected. You were out there.
You know, and there were people, even friends of mine, that sort of criticized me for that, because the role I'm in now shouldn't be a political position. I don't make it one.
You don't make
and
it.
That's why you don't see me in these press conferences and stuff, is because she's the elected official. She needs to, you know, if there needs to be a comment from our office to the press, unless she really wants me to do it, then it's going to be her. So I
She's
think
very
it's
verbal.
so I think it. So there were people, and I got it. They were like, "Listen, if you knock on doors for her and support these other candidates, and she's elected, and you become this position, then there could be people that think, oh, he's political. He won't help me because maybe I didn't support the county executive."
Oh, wow.
And you have to be really cognizant of that in my role. And my big phrase is, and I said it when Governor Hogan was reelected, and I said it again here, is when the campaign's over, it's time to govern. And when you govern,
I like that.
now,
I like that a lot.
If someone has a pothole, that pothole is not Democrat or Republican. That pothole is probably
It's
needs
a
to
pothole.
be fixed,
You're right.
regardless of the
like that
makeup
too, yep.
of whatever that neighborhood is, or how they voted or didn't vote, or whatever. You got to fix the problem, and
Nice.
so
Nice.
you just push it out of your mind. The whole political dynamic. You're in here, you're in these jobs. And the other thing is, life is so short, and you're in these jobs, and you're given, you're blessed to be in positions I am in for such a short period of time.
For such a time as this.
Yes, and so you can't squander that on sort of that sort of, especially in our time where politics is crazy, on that sort of political dynamic. You gotta go above it, and you gotta say, and you gotta see with different eyes, and like, what does this county need? How can I get us there? What steps can I make? And you have to also realize on long-term things, regardless of how many times she's elected in a row or whatever, there are some things that are so long in the future, you're not making it to the end. All you can really do is
have a
push the
part
ball
in it.
down the field
Yep.
as much
Have
as
a
you
part of
can
it,
for
yep.
your time here. And of course, tomorrow is
Wow.
promised to no man, so
Right.
your time could end tomorrow, or your time could end 20 years from now. Regardless, there's probably going to be a project that's 30, 40 years in the making.
Wow.
So you're not going to reach the end on everything. So you have to really laser focus on doing the best you can while you're here.
Right.
And then, God have something else for you, and then you do the best you can at that.
Wow. And we're going to go to the break in a few moments. When we get back, we're going to ask some of those things that's going on in the county. But I want to say this before we go to break. I think it was very important that she picked somebody, a man of faith, because there are times where you're going to need that person of faith to just encourage. Yeah. I don't know if y'all share Bible scripture. I have said, and I will say that since I've met the executive, she says more about scripture than she did when I first met her. And I know that you are a man of God, been to seminary school and things like that. But I think it's really good to have you along because, like you said, the fact that because you're with a Republican executive, some may say, well, I didn't vote for her, so he's not going to know. You do. You're concerned with the person above the party.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important. Wow. Now, I want to ask this before we go to break. The word unsung, what does that word mean to you?
Well, I think it's someone that sort of works in the background and does, different things, but then they're often overlooked or not noticed, so.
But they get the job done.
Yeah.
Okay. I asked you that for a reason, man. We will be back in a few minutes, and I'll explain why. Well, stay tuned to Bridging the Gap. All right, I'm gonna go run to the restroom.